Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Todd and Regan. Today we're continuing a little bit on from last week or a couple weeks ago, and we're going to continue talking about AI literacy. The reason we're talking about AI literacy is there's not a lot of it out there. We've from our survey at Grayson College faculty, we realized that there's a lot that teachers want to know about AI, and from the conferences and webinars we've been going to, there's not much talk about literacy, AI literacy. And at this point, I think it's obsolete not to specify the different things you mean when you're talking about AI, whether you're talking about machine learning or different foundational models or applications from AI or instructional AI. We have to start talking more specifically than just AI. So we're going to we're going to review a little bit of what we did last time, and then we're going to have some new definitions from the book, Teaching with AI. So some common definitions we went over last time are things you need to start having on your radar, start being familiar with, like what is AI? How does it differ from machine learning, which is a more specific task? Machine learning is something like recommending your next video, or if you're using Google Directions, it can analyze traffic flow. Machine learning is also used in fraud detection, speech recognition, things like that. And then deep learning, we talked about a little bit. It's basically that you start using a neural network that mimics the brain performance. And here in a little bit, I'll put up a graphic showing a neural network, and we'll talk through that a little bit. These are things that we really need to start becoming familiar with and a little bit fluent with, at least on a superficial level. And then most of us are becoming familiar with natural language processing, which is a subset of machine learning focusing on interpreting human speech or text. And this is like ChatGPT is a natural language processor. Robotics we mentioned because robotics does include AI. However, it also includes computer science and electrical engineering, focus on creating robots capable of performing real tasks. And then generative AI is the type of AI we're really talking about in the world today, as opposed to general artificial intelligence, which I'll talk about in a minute, which doesn't actually exist yet. Okay. And then some emerging ways that is really helpful for me to think through as AI changes is to think about instructional AI. A lot of the applications we're going to see in education are instructional AI, which is a subset of AI, often built as an application off of one of the foundational models like ChatGPT, and is more focused on pedagogy. So ChatGPT is going to answer a question comprehensively and as quickly as possible, and an instructional AI is going to guide students through answers instead of just giving them the answer right away. And then intelligence augmentation is probably if there's one concept you should get from our teaching with our Tuesdays with Todd and Regan, is this idea of intelligence augmentation. This is, in a best case scenario, this is going to be the future of AI in our world. And this came out of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Chris Deedy and others. And the important concept is that this is a form of AI that separates reckoning skills from judgment skills. For example, I've looked at the tool Packback. It's an instructional AI that helps with students writing, and it sort of does the feedback to students on their citations and their format and their grammar and punctuation, things like that, and leaves judgment or content skills to the teacher. So this idea that I think we'd really be benefited by an AI that takes over more reckoning skills, but allows judgment skills to humans. So according to this article from Chris Deedy, the way we're going to have to train students eventually will be really training those higher level judgment skills and how to augment with AI. And that the most competitive workers in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be those who can augment with AI and use AI efficiently, especially for those reckoning skills. A book I highly, highly recommend is Teaching with AI, a practical guide to a new era of human learning. This is the next set of definitions I'm taking out of this. And this book has a part on thinking with AI, teaching with AI, and writing with AI. It's a really comprehensive book, and I highly recommend it. So these definitions come out of that book. And the first one to start, at least be familiar with, you don't have to know this on a really deep level, was what a neural network is. And a neural network is a computer system modeled on the human brain. Now, the human brain is not digital. Neurons are not digital. They're not either in a state of on or off, but they have rates of fire and things like that. So, but the neural network was modeled on the human brain. And so basically, you can think of a machine learning plus a neural network equals one of the foundation models like ChatGPT. And I have an image coming up. I'll talk through the neural network a little bit more. So you'll see in the neural network, there's different nodes or intersections. And the pathways between those nodes are the internal variables that can be tuned or adjusted to change output. It's also called weighting, putting a weight on different parts of data that are flowing through the neural network. And I'll go over that in a minute. Tokens is something we can be familiar with, and that is basically a digital stand-in for a word or a number or a pixel. So when you put in input into a AI, you don't put the actual what actually goes in. We put in pictures and text or speech, but what goes into the AI is a token. The text or the pixels are translated into digital tokens. The tokens are what are processed in the AI and then are translated back into images or text or speech when it comes back out. A transformer was a real evolution in AI that helped bring about ChatGPT, and it basically provides every token with a certain weight and allows one token to be compared to any other token. Artificial general intelligence, like I mentioned before, is not the same as generative intelligence. General artificial intelligence is what we're looking at with ChatGPT. We're looking at general artificial intelligence, or excuse me, generative artificial intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is the computer science holy grail that someday AI would be able to think, make decisions, and even feel like humans. Best estimates are this is 20 to 50 years off before being able to attain that. And then the last thing really should be on your radar. Most of you are probably already, if you're looking at AI, you're thinking about prompt engineering and how you structure prompts. This is something important to learn. I very much recommend a free course on Coursera that's given by Vanderbilt University. It's an excellent course on just some of the basics of prompt engineering. Anything I'm missing, Regan?
Not so far.
Okay.
Sounds right.
So a deep neural network, this is a simplified version of just 4 layers of a deep neural network. The input layer is on the left and the data moves right to the output layer. The different circles are nodes or intersections, and each of those is a piece of data, and it performs like a mini calculator on that piece of data before passing it to the next level of the network. The lines in between the nodes are the parameters I talked about earlier, and those can be weighted differently to adjust outputs. So David James, one of the computer scientists at Grayson College, was explaining this to me. And he said, for example, you could create a very simple AI which tries to determine the difference between a photo of a cat and a photo of a dog. And so on the left side, you put in the photo of a dog, and the nodes take various aspects of what could be dogness, and each one weighted differently, and then passes the calculation to the next layer, which does the same until it passes to the final layer. And on the output on the right side would be the word, hopefully dog, not cat. So if it gets it right, it puts the word dog. If it gets it wrong, if you put an image of a dog in and the output is the word cat, then you would have to go back and re-weight some of those parameters or those lines between the nodes so you could adjust the neural network until it gives accurate output. That's the fundamentals of neural network that's behind these foundational models. So another thing you should start to become familiar with is currently the six main foundational models, which are from Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, Twitter, X, Inflection, and Meta or Facebook. And also be aware that Apple and Amazon will probably shortly have foundational models as well. So there's going to be 8 foundational models, and we can interact with those. I use Anthropic, and I think Regan uses ChatGPT-4 quite a bit. I know David James is using Pi. I haven't looked at Grok, and I've looked at Llama. I haven't looked at those, but so you can use those. But what we're going to be seeing in education, the instructional AI, is going to be more these applications that are coming off the bottom here, that are coming off of ChatGPT. And you can see right now the lines are all merging from the bottom up to ChatGPT, because right now most, not all, but as of the writing of this book, which is 2024, most of the applications are built on OpenAI, except over on the right, Hugging Chat is built over from Llama. So a lot of the things we're going to be doing in the rest of a lot of the rest of this year in Tuesday with Todd and Regan is we're going to be looking at some of these actual applications. And so I've looked at Jenny.ai. A lot of us have looked at Grammarly. I've looked at Explain Paper, which is interesting. I'll show that a little bit later in this video of kind of what Explain Paper is. For an Explain Paper, I wonder how teachers would think about this. A student can put a paper in Explain Paper, highlight a confusing section of it, and it will basically explain to them what that meant in words they can understand. As far as coding, I've looked at GitHub, Copilot. I don't do a lot of coding myself. I don't do any coding myself, really. But that's really common in the developer world to generate coding, which AI is apparently pretty good at. Would you say, Regan?
Absolutely. In fact, I use GitHub Copilot quite a bit, and I also ChatGPT has a new feature now called Canvas. Oddly enough, it's not the Canvas LMS, but it is that feature that allows you to code with the AI as though it were a collaborator. So okay. It's interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, and I know David James says it's not always accurate, but he has one exercise you can have your students determine what's wrong with the code. Put in code and try to see what's wrong. So Perplexity, I know some of our faculty in the English department has been looking at Perplexity, and I'll look at that a little bit later too. I believe Perplexity is pretty good at transparency, or really listing where it's pulling data from, which I think would be really exceptional. And I have looked, the one I probably looked at most is Research Rabbit. I use that a lot. Love it. Love Research Rabbit. But I'm just going to briefly, from the book, Teaching with AI, I'm going to briefly read a little bit about the differences between these 6 foundational models, starting with the Google Bard. So Gemini is now available at Grayson College in your Gmail apps up in the upper right. You can click on the applications grid and get on Gemini. You do have to be on the Google or Edge browser for it to work. But according to this book, the Bard, Gemini Bard, allows you to click on highlighted statements or click the Google button, and it allows you to check the veracity of information against a web search, which I think that'd be pretty handy. So that distinguishes that one. The second one, Claude, I use Claude a lot. It is focused on safety and making AI obey human values. It has fewer parameters. It has 860 million. Claude is significantly leaner and faster than ChatGPT-4, but Claude is built with many more tokens. This gives Claude a deeper understanding of context and makes its answers more readable and even poetic, and so far more likely to avoid AI detection. So reviews have found that Claude is better able to solve complex math problems and give precise legal analysis. Okay. And then the third one, where a lot of us are very familiar with OpenAI and ChatGPT, it is not connected to the internet. So if you ask it a specific question about something recent, it is likely to create fictional references. ChatGPT-4, something Regan has his expertise is in ChatGPT-4. It is substantially smarter and better AI. And this book says, do not assume you understand anything about AI until you have used it for several hours. So, and then we're looking at X. Finding. Okay, Grok. Yeah. Grok is in the other direction of Claude with fewer safety guardrails and will answer more questions with more humor and sarcasm. Real-time information from X, formerly Twitter, could be an advantage for staying current, but Grok only has 8,192 tokens, has 33 billion parameters. It's been subject to less testing and training. It's also limited to a premium service. So it's the data it's trained on is a lot of what's on X. So it's going to have whatever kind of misinformation or information that's on X. So something to be aware of is what the foundational models are as good as what they're trained on. A lot of them are trained on just the straight internet. Grok tends to be trained a lot on what's on Twitter. And then fifth is Pi. I'm not familiar with Pi. Like I say, David James has been using Pi. It's designed to be a conversational personal assistant. Pi is chatty, but not connected to the internet, so it works well for practice or learning conversations, according to this book. And then lastly, we have Llama from Facebook's Meta. It's a family of open source LLMs. So you can download an LLM and build your own AI tool, which is something Regan and I, and Alvin and Rose are looking at doing, is just to go through the thinking experiment of what AI would we want to make for Grayson College and how extensive would that be. So we're looking at maybe downloading one of those and see to what extent can we train the data on it. So that you can see Llama also has an application built on it called Hugging Chat. It's an application that uses Llama. I do not know what Hugging Chat is. Have you had a chance to see that, Regan?
I have never, because I'm not a Meta/Facebook user at all. I unfriended Facebook a couple of years ago, and I just never got back on.
Yeah. Okay. Also, Llama is free with no registration required, so it's quite open model. So, okay. So those are kind of the differences between, and then keep an eye out for Apple's AI foundational model and Amazon's foundational model. And later in this episode, Regan's going to be talking about Merlin.
Absolutely.
Merlin is a very promising looking AI for use in education. Do you know what the data Merlin is trained on, Regan, or anything about that?
I know that it is a ChatGPT framework that they train it on. And now the website, and not to jump too far ahead, but the website says that it is reviewed material. I'm wondering if that means peer reviewed. There are some sources for what they call scholarly material that they can use that are not exactly peer reviewed. So I'm gonna withhold judgment on that until I can talk to a representative of the company. But that is one of their big selling points, is that their data is specifically designed for education, that it does not use the open internet like ChatGPT. So what it does, it uses the framework, the software for ChatGPT, which anybody can download. It uses that, but they train that on a smaller data set of material that they have curated. And so that's their claim to fame at this point. Okay.
Yeah, here in a little bit, Regan's going to be introducing Merlin, and Rose is going to be talking about some AI that is integrating into databases. Grayson College Library is a beta tester for the AI in their databases. And I know a lot of classes that do research at Grayson College have the ability to put the databases tab right in their courses, and that's going to have an AI research assistant on as well. So Rose is going to be talking about that. Regan's going to be talking about Merlin. I'm going to briefly look at Research Rabbit. And all right, we'll take it from there.
So now, before I get started on going through Merlin, just be aware that I'm not a vendor. I am not sold on this AI. I don't have. I'm trying very hard not to have any bias, if that makes any sense. But I do like the idea that is specifically geared towards education. So just real quickly, I'm going to go through some of the things that make this AI specific to education. Bear in mind that these things came from the website, so they're probably vendor set up by the vendors, and so they probably are biased a little bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. All right, why leaders love Merlin. And basically, I'm just going to go through these. These are supposed to be reasons for AI to be in a classroom at all. And so these, according to the website, Merlin solves all these problems. So I don't know that that's true or not. I've never evaluated it in person because, frankly, it costs money. But this is what they declare. More time for high-value tasks. Essentially, if you're using Merlin as a classroom management tool, as a technology tool, and as a assistant, then the instructor should have an increased instructional time in order to interact with the students. It is FERPA and COPA certified. The material here is, or the student interaction here is, it does not capture any of their FERPA information, so you don't have to worry about that. They have certification from the various and sundry educational groups, so you don't have to worry about FERPA violations or anything like that. More authentic engagement. What they're meaning by this is that the students, let's say there's a lecture going on, uh, the students are listening to the teacher, and the student comes across I don't know, a thing that they don't understand. They have the option of going in and inquiring with the AI directly. Uh, I'm going to say that may or may not be useful because a lot of times the educational experience comes from other questions being asked by other students. So, like I said, that's to be taken with a grain of salt. And then streamlined behavior management. Uh, students or the teachers should be engaged with the students instead of having to worry about technology and controlling technology in the classroom. So that is a thing that they're touting as one of their uh, benefits. Integration with existing systems. It does integrate with anything. Uh, it doesn't matter what kind of system it is, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows, whether it's Google, whether it's Chrome. It will interact with anything. Todd, what you said earlier about Canvas having AI, when I went to the AI conference in Denver this last year, their beta, the Canvas beta edition, has generative AI specifically built into it in a lot of different places. They just basically uh, they just married AI, but I think they got enough feedback from the users that were not completely comfortable with that idea that they didn't. They intended to roll it out last year, but they did not. In fact, they're holding it because for that reason they got enough. People were like, "Hey, let's don't get carried away here." So, but anyway, it does integrate with any system. It will integrate with Canvas. There you can LTI it into Canvas and privacy and security. Once again, SOC 2 protocols. It does follow those certifications, and it is in compliance with FERPA and COPA. So, uh, if nothing else, that's a good thing. Reliable content. Now, this is one of the really big things that they push. It's the first LLM, which is a large language model like ChatGPT, but it's specifically designed for the classroom. That means you can be confident that Merlin is pulling from vetted educational content and resources and not from the entire internet, which, if that is the case, that would be a good thing. Now, it would be nice to know what those sources were and how they were vetted, whether those are, scholarly peer-reviewed articles or what, but it would be nice to know.
Mhm.
Strong support, everybody claims that. I'm not even going to do that one. And then robust training, they do offer training. Self-paced orientation, which basically means they have an AI leading the training. Um, I'm not sure that that's a good thing necessarily.
Right.
And then finally, freedom to engage. This is more for the classroom control aspect of it. Uh, Basically, Merlin allows instructors to control things like projectors, like computers. It will allow them to stop and start media play. It'll do a lot of things for them to prevent them from, or to keep teachers from having to stop and interrupt their flow, doing stuff to deal with technology in the classroom. And less tech friction, that's the same thing. Teacher prep tools. Essentially, it has a specific area in the generative AI that allows teachers to build lesson plans and grading rubrics and differentiated learning experiences, which we talked about earlier today, personalized experiences. I think that's what they're meaning, differentiated. I know that was a big thing when I was teaching K-12 is you wanted to differentiate. You had a mixed classroom, a lot of different learning levels, and you had to provide information and provide lessons for the different levels within your classroom. And so Merlin apparently is able to do that. And I understand that you are able to set your standards into Merlin, and that's part of what it listens to. And then finally, it's easy to use for tech savvy and not so tech savvy teachers alike. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. So essentially, that's Merlin in a nutshell. It is a large language model AI that also has if you're familiar with the term Internet of Things, IoT, Internet of Things is the ability to control physical or technological devices using the internet. And so Merlin allows for those, that's its two big selling points is it allows a generative AI that's geared toward educational material. It's also an instructional AI, which means it doesn't just give you answers. It doesn't just pop the answers out. It's more along the lines of guiding the students when they ask it a question. Instead of just giving them answer, it suggests other questions and suggests sources for them to look at, things like that, if that makes any sense at all. So essentially, that's what I was able to glean from my investigations into Merlin AI. I didn't look at anything practical like how much it costs or anything like that because, like I said, I have no dog in this fight at all. I have as much of or as little bias as I can possibly have. This is the one that everyone seems to be talking about as far as what's geared towards education. So I'm going to unshare my screen and give it back to Todd.
Well, Regan, I like that it's vetted on educational content and resources. That's pretty powerful. So is this for use in face-to-face classes?
This is for use in face-to-face classes. Essentially, what the instructor's doing, they have this little magical wand that they can control. From that aspect, they can control anything in their classroom. If they're using a smart board or if they're using a projector from a computer, essentially they can control those things from anywhere in the room. So that gives them that advantage. And then also it integrates into Canvas or LMS, or it has a web portal as well that the students can access when they need help, and that the teacher can access when they're designing lesson plans or when they're building rubrics. And basically that works just like Chat GPT. You put in prompts and say, hey, help me design a rubric for this lesson or that lesson. But it pulls that information and pulls those materials from a vetted, I say vetted, from a vetted source.
Mhm. Okay, nice. Yeah, looks like something worth looking into. Rose, what's been your perspective on the library and the kind of AI the library is looking at?
Um, well, I want to tell you guys that the first thing I would say is if I could put AI as a cat back in the bag, I would. So,
Yeah,
so understand that when I have good news to report,
Yeah.
it's from somebody who's very reluctant.
yeah,
But I do have good things to say.
Mhm.
And the first that I'll drop is that we just got a green light from our biggest vendor, who's EBSCO, that we're going to now be included as Grayson College into their beta testing models for AI that they're about to be rolling out. What I'm excited about with that is hopefully it's something we can even expand access onto faculty that might be interested, or other users. Overall, I have really good things to say, because we can't answer that question about when products say we're going to use scholarly sources or vetted sources to feed this. Many times we can't say where that came from. People like the representatives out at EBSCO, Clarivate, ProQuest, Gale, they have an answer for that. They're purporting to only include the actual scholar journal article content. And keep in mind, if anybody else says, hey, I'm including good scholarly content, they might just be doing Google Scholar that's free, because this is incredibly expensive game. And so there is going to, at some point, be costs associated with this. But what's neat about Grayson College is we already have memberships in these things, and we have consortiums. I'll give you an example. A block of resources we've got right now that we pay $3,000-$4,000 annual for in our consortium is actually worth about $130,000 in annual subscription. So it drives down the cost, and we still get that good content. I was very heartened to hear that, how they're feeding the tools. The other neat thing that they're doing is, I'm concerned about accuracy. And when you start driving in prompts in the inquiry process, you potentially are bringing down the accuracy. Like you're discovering, you're saying, I'm studying climate change or abortion. And as I click stuff, I'm messing with things. Like I'm teaching the algorithm what to bring me back. They are not going to include any user prompts into teaching their tool. I think that's phenomenal. What they're doing, this is so cool. They are using librarians and subject level experts only, according to what they're saying. And it looks to be they're being pretty transparent about this part of the process. So to me, that's great, because it should keep the accuracy up. There's many positives that I wanted to say. And then one of the things about security too, and this is something we need to watch for just as people in the field. They too are saying we're not going to be recording student data, we're not going to be recording prompts. That's great. But I'm going to tell you, right now, if you and I want to hunt for an airline ticket or a movie ticket, or we're looking up a phone number somewhere, we have to type something in or say something to generate a prompt to make something happen. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you, as a designer of computer databases and systems, I know for a fact what you type in a search engine, because it's popping up for me elsewhere. And now what I can do, you have to put in some prompt to get something back out. I mean, we saw how the nodes work. Yeah. So something by default, no matter what, it's always being recorded. But how do you do a batch deletion process? What do you do with the collected? Because it's going to auto-collect data. So I'm really more asking that question. I'm hoping to get an answer back on what do you do with batch deletion cycles? Mm-hmm. That should be our question, not just accepting, oh, we don't record, we're in compliance with, any kind of privacy. Like, we need to know what their policy is for what is collected, because there is collection. So that's interesting. I should tell you one thing I really like about this process, about these library AI overlayers. They're global corporations. And I mean, take that to be what you will, because we all know that there's some flaws in that. But what I like is that they're on a bigger obligation, I think, than a startup tech company or a startup app. They're on this, stance that they have to do something ethical, because the thing is that these companies are all over the world. And so they have this track record of working with academics, with, certified research, with all of these things, that I feel like there's a higher level of seriousness than we're just a startup company and we're going to pop you back some research. So I feel like there's just this greater level, there's a depth there with our vendors. And so I do appreciate that, although we can stay skeptical, because we should. But I think there's a different level of research and development that's going on there with some really good vetted engineers for softwares. So one of the things, getting outside of that kind of teaching you about what they're purporting to do for security, or, where it's being fed from and so on, I want to take you into what does this look like for the student experience? And it's actually kind of neat. And again, I tell you, I'd put the cat back in the bag. So take the... But I'm telling you, it's kind of neat. So what it looks like, this is so cool. When you get on that database to type in your prompt, there's an overlay on the bottom. Step number one that I think is amazing. If you get onto Google right now and it offers, or Meta or something, Facebook or whatever, and it offers you the AI layer, it's kind of stuck there in your face. The databases are leaving it to where the administrator can turn off features at any time. So we have centralized library control on that. And the individual user can. So if the student finds it's tedious for their process, or the teacher wants it turned off in that individual class, they can do that. And I think that's amazing, because I don't know that that's really occurring in some of these other research tools. And I have a big concern there. If a student downloads a research app for AI, which they can right now, they can get a research app, Google App Store, whatever. Yep. The problem is now we have turned the student or this faculty member into the administrator of their own app. And we're asking them to have that level of expertise to understand how this thing functions and be in full control of it. There's no overlay of somebody that's actually an expert in databases and in things like AI to sit there and guide the process if something goes wonky. And I'll give you an example. If you use a banking app and you don't know what you're doing and somebody steals your ID, how do you know that you're doing something for the safe data collection practice or selecting that option that you need to? Well, if we have our librarians do that, now you've got an expert working on top of it. So in that first feature, they're going to get some prompt options, just kind of like you do now, sort of coded little options, but they're more intuitive. And that's me saying that, grain of salt here, but they really are. So for example, it knows in abortion, it could offer you multiple types of issues. Like maybe it talks about different health conditions as an option. It talks about maybe different legal statutes, how different countries handle it. You get kind of this bigger, broader thing than just it saying pros and cons, right? And what's really cool, and I mean, I got to say this, it's really clever organization. When you get further into it, it's going to bring you back. Right now, I don't know if you guys are probably familiar, you'll get this long list of research articles back, right? And you kind of sift them. This compartmentalizes really neat little rectangular items for you, anywhere from like 6 to 8 at a time, very boxed, something your brain easily sees and gets a preview on, and it helps drive that process for you. And there are some other tools that are mimicking similar things right now, but to have that from our primary database vendor who can do this with 150 plus databases in one go, only from scholarly research, that's pretty amazing. And then the neat thing is there's something called a concept map, and you've probably seen some of these by now, where like abortion would be in the center or climate change would be in the center, and then there'd be greenhouse gases or this thing coming off, different options. But they pop out at you kind of like in real time. Like once you hover over it, it gives you all different topic items to go. So it's very friendly for this user. And something kind of cool they're doing is we've always had citation tools available where you can start making your bibliographic, records exported and so on, but you had to click and do steps. This keeps track in real time of the articles you're using and will auto-generate you that citation list. Which, I mean, arguably we could say that might even bring down plagiarism, because I'm not saying it did or didn't, but I'm saying it kind of eases that process and you keeping track of what you've been using, right? So we could say that could actually be a great thing. The other neat thing it does.
Pilot this and can we do something like this in the future? I feel like we're just talking about these systems, and I want to see Merlin. I want to see this. So maybe for the next one, we could just turn it over and let Rose do a demonstration.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd love to tell you, I wish I had a slightly better answer. I was trying so hard. Several people know that I've been just begging these guys to let us in their stuff, because I've gotten to play with it, but only in snippets. And I want to give you some kind of, like you're saying, I want to give you a live demo. So we did get a green light. I got it this morning. So we're chasing down the rabbit hole. But yes, and I will definitely let you know. And in fact, I won't even make you wait. When I have the green light, I'll give you the thing to play with yourself, because I do want you to see it. And the only other thing that I can tell you, I think, was just giving you bullets, a major positive. Honestly, this was kind of cool. We're trying to teach people how to do research, how to do a good, thorough process. You can take these highlighted parts of your conglomerate, and it's going to spit you back out a really neat outline. Now, right now, one of the things that librarians teach is, hey, we really don't want you on Wikipedia, but if you glance at it, you can get an idea of how to research, how to organize a really big topic. The AI intuitively can help them do that and do it through vetted sources we already have. So I'm with you. I think we should be able to see it, and I'll get you more. The other thing I'll do is after this, anybody that's interested in the meeting and you all have a copy of it, I'll bring you to our vendor sites so you can start looking through what they're doing. But I think they have a great answer for it. I would definitely tell you, no matter what anybody says, if they try to say they're controlling the feeding model of what's going in, if it's not truly coming from vetted academic sources, if it's coming off the interwebs, It is not controlled conversation. And once it involves user prompts into feeding those algorithms, it's going to have levels of inaccuracy. So I like that right now, the vendors have kind of like a training wheels answer for this. They've got a way they're still guiding it. And I will tell you, there's not one single, I just came back from the Texas Council of Academic Libraries. There's not one vendor who isn't doing an overlay like this. So it'll be interesting to see coming. And what I'm kind of getting at is we have the flexibility to shut things off, but we are by default as a college going to get an answer for AI and research. It is coming, it happens, it's existing. Every single vendor's on board and doing this. So if teachers are kind of wondering, like, how could we integrate? They're going to see options for integration, if that makes sense.
So what I'm hearing from Richard as faculty is that as we have this opportunity to do this, they want a demonstration. They want to have hands-on real-time knowledge. So what we've got is the okay to go into the beta, which may not be exactly what you want to demonstrate, but we have a start.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying, Richard? Is that what Richard's asking?
Well, yeah, and it's stuff we already subscribe to this, so I guess I don't know, pay an additional fee or whatever, but that's people should already be familiar with the basic process of like how to do stuff in EBSCO.
There is no, there's right now, and I'm not, again, just kind of like what Regan said, I am not representing these guys or, saying who's best, but I will say I'm not I'm not this ambassador for EBSCO.
No, I'm saying everybody already should know what EBSCO and some of the other databases do. So it's not like jumping into something all brand new. That should be a good starting point.
Agreed. And what I will say is so far what we hear, 100% agree. What we so far hear is there isn't an associated cost yet. And so I have asked, because clearly now you're paying research and development, you got some extra tools you're running, you have better storage that you're upgrading to because it has to run quick. So clearly at some point there's cost, but what I like is, and so vendors have been kind of mercurial about that. We don't have a pinned down number yet. What is this we know it's going to be included no matter what. So in other words, what I'm saying is we're opted in. Everybody who's a subscriber is opted in. We can shut it off, but we already get it. But I will say, if there's a slight uptick on the cost or even a big uptick, the consortium drives that down, which I like because that's not the college individually taking that on. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard, do you have he needed to go?
So I think somebody came in.
Okay.
And as far as the costs go, if it's within the consortium, they'll set the cost, but we don't get all of our databases through the consortium,
Right.
But it's a lot of the same vendors. It's just not included what the consortium package is. So there's always a new cost every year on database subscriptions. So that's just something that, they may say, okay, instead of, $5,000, you're going to go $7,000 more. So there'll be costs somewhere,
Right.
But it just comes in different ways.
Right.
And wherever Richard went, not everybody understands how the databases are used. That's why we try to have info literacy research classes. And unfortunately, faculty aren't using us for teaching that as much as they used to.
Yeah.
But I'm digressing and going down a rabbit hole. Sorry.
Well, when you're ready to do that demo, we usually have Tuesdays with Todd every 2 to 3 weeks, Tuesdays with Todd and Regan every 2 to 3 weeks. When you're ready to do that demo.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to have a pilot group.
Okay.
So, so like in other words, how many memberships I'm allowed to give out, and or if I can open it just freely, anybody that's interested, I will lend access on. And usually our vendors let me do that. So I'll dig for special permission on that too. I will say as researchers, just one thing, so I've told you about putting the cat back in the bag. One thing I would say is, as you're using this yourself, what do you think you should be concerned and looking out for? One of the big problems I have is we learn a lot in research from mistakes, human error. Right. And so one of the problems I see is when I was recently doing LMX leadership, it's a pretty stuck topic to only certain things about, the dyads and relationships. It's very, very specific leader-member exchange type research. And as I would be hunting for a topic that was hard to find, sometimes I found things that were completely unrelated that I needed to know about that tied back in, that if an algorithm was catering and feeding certain data to me, I might not have expanded that process and that thinking. So I can also see that maybe it could spoon feed us too much. But at the same time, the junior college level that we're concerned with serving, well, that could be a great starting point for them.
One of the tools I use a lot, and one of the tools I wanted to just show here for a couple minutes before we end today is Research Rabbit. And
Okay.
you can tell me how similar it is to different things you're looking at. I'm just going to introduce it. Let me see, make sure I got that. Yeah, okay. This is my Research Rabbit. This is an AI I've really liked. So my collections right now, I have two collections over here: Critical Pedagogy and Authoritarian Democratic Techniques of Lewis Murphy. That's my personal research. And then the Critical Pedagogy is a folder I'm creating for the Critical Pedagogy Working Group that they can collaborate with. So I haven't really decided. So I'll click on this one first. And I have put one article in there. And I can collaborate with everybody else in the Critical Pedagogy Working Group, and they can help me build my bibliography here. They can help me build whatever content. What is the research this group wants to do? They can help build it right here. But what was more interesting is I started here. I was checking out Research Rabbit, and it said put in a paper that you like. So I put in probably my favorite paper by Lewis Mumford, which is called Authoritarian and Democratic Techniques of Lewis Mumford. And it immediately populated all these other writings down here. And especially this first one, The Road to Necropolis. I read that and it was an amazing art. So long story short, Research Rabbit probably saved me about 6 months of research into going in a direction I really wanted to go. And some of the things it found that was really close to my article are exceptional. You know, I found it exceptional. But you can click on, so I can look at, so then it starts to flesh out as you go to the right. I can come and look at similar work, and it opens up another layer.
Right, and that this neural net with this concept map that's in real time. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that would be familiar. So that was interesting too. So yeah, the concept map, it shows related works to my work. So I get an overall picture of the kind of work done in the field that I'm researching right now. And you can click on any one of the nodes, and over here it'll open up, and I can look briefly at what that one is about, right? Or I can click on the one next to it. I can start clicking on, first of all, I can see how much work is done on the various nodes
It's like credo on steroids, right? What
in
Epson's doing.
Research Rabbit. So I've really loved Research Rabbit. I like that it's collaborative. I like that I'm just starting the Critical Pedagogy Working Group, and I'm going to have the group build the research for the group, so they can collaborate on building research for the group. Another one I really like, no, not that I really like. That's the only one I really like. But another one I'm looking at is Explain paper. I don't know if teachers are going to like this or not. Basically, it says upload a paper, highlight confusing text, get an explanation, right? So I can see my first flash through this. I can see good and bad about this. I can see because you want to know how to read a research paper. You want to get to the point where you know how to read a research paper. Would it be a crutch where you don't learn to read research papers, or would it be a tool that speeds up students who reach a confusing part? So as you can see on the little flash below, you can highlight a part of a research paper, and it's going to give a supposedly easier to understand summary of that. It's just one of the things I'm looking at. I'm looking at Jenny EI, Supercharge Your Next Research Paper. Jenny's AI-powered text editor helps you write, edit, and cite with confidence. Save hours on your next paper. I don't know. Haven't dug into it yet. A lot of people look at Grammarly, and a lot of our teachers have used Grammarly. I haven't really used Grammarly a lot, but I know that's pretty common use. GitHub Copilot is the most popularly used coding tool, like to generate code. Perplexity. I know our English department is using Perplexity, and what they liked about it is the transparency of it. Is it gives good citations on the answers it pulls up. that's something I'm starting to look at. Something I was fascinated about was hello history, chat with anyone from the past. And I haven't used that yet, but you can see, you can chat with, oh, this is fun. Who are these people? I know Lincoln, I know Buddha, I know Che Guevara. Yeah, could be something useful for history. Something I did look at was this one. It's just character AI. I couldn't figure out what character AI is, but I had SpongeBob SquarePants describe Heidegger's work on technics to me, and this is
Martin Heidegger's work on technology focused on how human beings relate to and interact with technology in modern society.
Okay. That's very wrong.
It's funny.
And it was kind of short, but actually he made a really good point. Technology has taken a dominant role in our lives, often without us even realizing it. So,
That's SpongeBob. So
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes you just feel like you're on a big game of Mad Libs.
I know.
yeah,
Like AI's
and
just plugging in the algorithm for the thing that makes the most sense on that verb or noun.
Right, right. So, look, so these are just some of the a lot of these I got from that earlier image I showed from the 6 foundational model, like Gen AI. These are some of the applications that are starting to be built off of ChatGPT. And then so that we're going to see a proliferation of these, and we're going to have, basically
Sure.
rubrics on how to assess them quickly, how to know what we're looking for. We have to have a vision of knowing what we're looking for. What kind of apps do we want to have? Any other comments before I wrap up? Anything I've missed or something you wanted
No, I think this is very informative.
to?
I think it's a good conversation.
Awesome.
I think you've got a good team working together
Definitely.
to, I would like to see more people attend.
Yeah.
But a lot of nose to the grindstone. We are here at Grayson, but this conversation, y'all are way ahead of anything else on this campus.
Wow.
I've been hearing that. I've been hearing we're ahead of other people's webinars and conferences too. And we're ahead of all the webinars and conferences I've gone through in the last year, just on not assuming everybody has AI literacy even.
Well,
Right.
I think that the application of what you're looking at is education. And it was mentioned, is this something that we can participate in the AI that we choose to use? I know that Todd has mentioned it. Rose just said that too. I mean, it may be, is there something that maybe we don't always just use somebody else's out there? I am excited about the database AI coming. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, you're right on track with that, because that's what we want to do next, is start looking at we want to keep building people's, one, literacy of AI, two, ability to have a critical look at AI, and then three, looking at different AI applications that we're interested in and the pros and cons of why we would use it and how we would use. So when you guys are ready to do that, reach out and let me know. And we do get quite a few views, because the recording of this will be posted to Canvas announcements, and we do get quite a few.
I'd also, always starting with the why.
Yeah, exactly.
Why and what for is this being used? And I think that this is the tack that y'all are taking.
That's exactly where you want to start. One of my recommendations I keep giving is relax about AI. You don't have to go out if you're a teacher, you don't have to go out and decide which AI you're going to use right now. That's putting the cart before the horse. Once you start getting some AI literacy is what I would say. And
I like that.
Know how quick it's coming. Be open to different things, but just relax. A lot of us are working on it, focus on it, looking at it for you. Take a critical view of it. If you start to see something that's going to take some of the reckoning skills from that you do away, so that you can focus on judgment skills, especially, that's probably the way you're going to want to go.
One thing I want people to feel too is that sometimes I think technology is a little scary, or it's hard for us to know what's going on because we just feel like we have no grasp of what does this mean? What is AI? And so we have kind of these definitions that come up and they help somewhat. But I'm going to tell you, I was very confused when I first joined infoscience as a field in my master's degree. Very, very confused. And I was a little scared I'd ever grasp it. And then one day it occurred to me that the way the database that's holding the information works is it's like an old school filing cabinet. And basically all the computer does is it opens a drawer, and everything that belongs in that file, you go through that way to grab out those like items. And the filing cabinet works together. So if you try to pull out this drawer before you pull out this one, you probably have to shut the other because the computer's making decisions. And I started to understand how this works.
Right.
And the reason that matters is because that's how a database works. It's just a filing cabinet. It's now digital, and it's holding this information in different categories. And all that AI is really is a sophisticated filing cabinet where the little computer making decisions based off just some math, some stats, different ratios. It's deciding why it's going to open certain folders for you and bring you back that answer. And that's really all it's doing. And so I loved your neural network concept map and those things, because if you look at an old school database, that's all it's doing. And we're using those right now every day. When you tell the airline that you want a ticket for October 18th in the morning, it's just a computer making a little decision saying, I have these ones available. And so I think as people start to be informed about like, oh, okay, that's just a model making a decision, then it's not so mysterious and we can start understanding how deep this goes. You know what I mean? But take some of that fear of like, what is this or how does it work? It's just some math.
Yeah, I think that the way I looked at it, because I'm old school, is the old card catalog. A human put a variety of sources on one card, but it connected to the other cards that you could find more information on. So what this is doing, it's a human still creating a digital concept of finding more information to get you the totality of what you need. I think that's how I looked at it.
Excellent.
And it's just getting more complicated.
And it's just getting more complicated.
Yeah. And one of the complications that's tough to deal with is the amount of financial investment going into AI right now. It's so huge. It's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's going to be flooding at us. People are out there trying to think any possible way they can fit AI into your world and into your life. So
yeah,
well, it's already here.
Another layer of confusion. Thank you, Richard, for coming. Thank you, Lisa Alman.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good information.
You as well. Bye-bye.
it was really good.
See you
Thank you,
later.
guys.
Bye.